Good day. I'm Mike James, and this is Parkitect. Welcome back, everyone. So glad you could join me. It's been a heck of a week. Been a heck of a couple weeks. I'll tell you, I've been having a couple computer issues. The big one was my uninterruptible power supply died, and I live in a place where the power goes out rather regularly. You know, a long time ago, I used to live across the street from a hospital, and I was on the same grid that hospital was on. Power never went out. We had a really cold winter, and they started doing rolling blackouts for everyone, but my power never went out that entire 3-day period because I was on the same junction as the hospital. Oh, for the days! But I've got the batteries replaced. The UPS took me a while to get them, find them, and get them ordered, but that's all up and running. Everything else is taken care of. Today, I'm going to do a hedge maze. And I wanted to do these for a while. They're not really complicated, but I think there's some things that you can do with them that make them interesting that maybe you hadn't thought of. So I wanted to do that. You'll notice on the screen here, this is something else I've been working on. It's like a Candyland trademark, copyright, whatever, theme, you know, using the Candyland colors. I think I went a little bit overboard on the colors. I haven't finished the thought for that video, but if you look, I've got the ground colored as well as the rides, and I got buildings with, you know, the day glow colors on it. I think it looks really good. I just think maybe I went a little bit overboard. It looks like somebody threw up Rainbow Bright all over my park, so I'm going to continue to work on that. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think that's something you'd like to see. The making of, and for me to describe the techniques and everything I use. We've got a great show for you today, though. The Hedge Maze, simple in practice, but there's some really neat things you can do to make it great. Hang on tight. We're coming right at you. All right, so here we are. I started off using some of these. I use this light green mod for a texture for the grass. It's a grass path, I should say. And I started out thinking, okay, I'll make a maze using this path, and then I'll draw some stuff around it, and we'll go ahead and we'll make our maze that way. Now, one of the tricks to making a maze is not to think about it too much until you get to the end and kind of decide, you know, draw out some paths and stuff, and then strategically delete certain paths or add certain paths to kind of give it that easy to get lost in, only one way out kind of feeling. Now, of course, because of the actual pathfinding in the game, or lack thereof at this time, the peeps just kind of wander around in random directions, so they tend to stay lost in these things for quite a while. Where I end up putting this isn't going to be where I'm going to leave it. I just wanted to throw it down in a park for you at the end. But be careful with this, because I think you could end up with a lot of unhappy people. Now, so you can see here, I'm kind of just laying out a place and leaving some blank areas. And I thought, you know, the hedges are fences. And with the new way fences interact with paths, I ended up kind of basically covering the whole thing with paths and just using the hedges to divide it out. You'll notice I do this, but you're going to notice I add more path in later. Now, one of the tricks when you're making a hedge maze, any hedge maze, but works in Parkitect too, is that you want there to be some indication. There needs to be some way for the people inside your hedge maze to have some sort of way of figuring out where they are. You'll notice as I just rough outline the outside and just some basic shapes inside. And as I go, I will change and move things and decide that I want things certain ways. Like here, I'm going to add paths in where I just opened up the hedges. And don't be afraid. Just throw them down. Don't think that it's got to be perfect the first time. It doesn't. You just throw the stuff down and then you adjust it as you go. The trick is you for a real maze, and I think it works when you're making a maze just for this game because you want to have a little bit of realism, is you want to kind of psychologically encourage people to head down the wrong path. One of the ways you could do this is by having some longer paths that you can't really see the end of, and then you get to the end and all of a sudden, gosh, there's nothing there. I wasn't able to do that as well as I really wanted to because I didn't want to make this thing huge. I mean, you could really make this a really great maze, but because of the scale of everything in these hedge mazes, I didn't really want to go crazy. I didn't want to make this thing absolutely insanely large. Now you notice I'm just using the regular hedge pieces right out of the fences menu. It's important you use the one for the fences, especially as you'll notice I start to put down more paths and use that new thing that came out in Alpha 4 where the paths actually separate, or excuse me, the fences or hedge fences actually separate the paths. Now I didn't want to just do these hedges. I mean, I've seen it done. It's fine. It looks okay. I wanted to add something a little more. And remember I was telling you that when you're making these hedge mazes, you want to give people kind of a fair shot to understand if they've been someplace before. And I've seen some hedge mazes where you don't get that. It's just hedge after hedge after hedge, and there's really no landmarks at all. And that's great if you really want to tick people off and not make them have a good time. But I really feel it's important that you have landmarks that maybe they can see while they're in the maze, some trees and things, but also landmarks in the maze where they can walk through and say, oh, I've seen this place that has, these things and a bench. So you give the people kind of a fair shot. And you'll notice I'm kind of filling up most of the maze after I had spent all that time making a design. And that's really important. Just don't be afraid to change your mind on what you're going to do. Now you notice there's a new mod that came out. It's called, I believe it's More Hedges. And be sure you hit Alt F4 to, get that fine. And I think you do have to mod the XML file, and I've shown you that before. Let me know if you want me to do a whole video on how to mod those XML files so that you can easily make things a little more granular and place them down easier. But it has some great things on it, including these curved pieces for the arches and these other pieces that kind of go up and down. And this is something I wanted to do. I don't want to put them everywhere, but I want to put several places where we have these hedges where they're taller and they kind of curve down. It gives the maze a little more of an interesting look. Now, one thing I did notice when I was doing this is that because these are designed to be on the ground, they have that brown at the bottom. And because I'm not raising them all the way up, that brown is just kind of sitting out there, and it just doesn't look good. You will notice I go ahead and color them. One of the great things about these new hedges is you could color them any colors you want. It has 3 colors, the light and the dark green, which you can make any color you want, and that little brown at the bottom. You might have noticed at the beginning of the video, I use those arches as like rainbow things. You can make them any color you want. They are so versatile. Great addition to the game. So here we are. I've just put some stuff down, and you'll notice it gives it a little bit of a hey, I can see what's going on. And I also put these little round, and there's a diamond shape one I also use, like these little mini plant hedge things. I put them at the corners of some things just to kind of give the maze a little more detail. It's easy to make a quick maze, but I wanted something with just a little more detail. I didn't want to overdo it, and I think I caught a good balance between the two. Again, because I have some places where there's triangles, some places where there's circles, and now some places where there are trees, I think you're kind of giving your peeps, I mean, realistically in the game, the peeps aren't that smart, but you give the impression of a maze that has a little more of a fairness to it, a maze where you could actually use your brain and kind of figure out, oh, I see where this is and that is. Maybe I need to go this way, or I recognize this place. Now, these the More Hedges mod also has these little fence pieces you see I put at the end. Now, you notice when you're putting these hedges, you can put them on the outside of the path or on the inside of the path because they are a fence. So some places you can make it a little thinner than other places. And I made this exit thin kind of to discourage people from going down it. It's too small of an area, maybe give them the impression it's going to end up being blocked. So you could see here, now I'm adding in some little hedges, right out of the plants menu, those little potted hedges and potted plants, just putting them in certain places. I'm also going to put down some sacks of grain and some benches. It's important to have benches. You're going to be sitting there with people wandering around for a long time, getting lost. You got to give them benches. Try to keep them as happy as you can, because believe me, your peeps are not going to be thrilled with you after this thing. I thought about putting a bathroom in here, but I didn't want to put this big green bathroom blob in the middle of it. So I didn't do it, although I could put it right there where those arches are in the middle. But I figured, what good is a bathroom if it's kind of hidden, which it basically would have to be. You notice there is only one real way to get to the end, and it's not super hidden, but I think it's good enough. Now here you'll see I'm placing those sacks of grain and things. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to give the impression that the maze is fair. It gives you an opportunity to learn. I also put some barrels down. But if you look at the overall maze, it's not super complicated, but I think it's complicated enough, especially with the current AI in the game. Tell me what you think about that. Leave me a comment down below. Do you like the look of the maze? Have you used a hedge maze in your park? It's an interesting thing because, of course, you're not really making any money off of it. There is not currently a way that I know of that you could charge people to get in or out of your hedge maze. Boy, that'd be rude, wouldn't it? Let you in for free, out, give me $1. So maybe not. I really think this looks great. I like the look. You can see I've got different areas with different things. Now we're going to go ahead and use the blueprint tool and save it. And the reason I'm saving, and I always do that, I type the save name in the search box and then hit create and realize I have to type it in again. I'm going to go ahead and go back to our park we'd been working on, and I'm going to throw the hedge maze down there. I did spend just a minute looking at the purple stuff that I never did. I never did save it, and I was trying to get at this purple smoke. The smoke generators currently don't work in Alpha 4. I was trying to find a way to delete it without deleting the ride on top. Just couldn't do it, so I just deleted the ride and then kind of looked until I could find that smoke generator and played with it, and eventually I got it deleted. There's also some smoke over by my volcano. I just used the new delete tool, which is great. Hold shift, drag down, delete, gone instantly. Makes it really easy. But I'm going to put this hedge maze over here. Now this can't be its final position. And the reason becomes pretty obvious. It basically takes up this whole spot here, and there's not an effective way to get a path over there, and so you basically have to go through the hedge maze to get to that part of the park, and that's just not going to work. But I wanted to throw it in here, have it in the park, so I didn't forget about it. I did run into a little bit of an issue here where I do have to move the workers' shed there. The reason is I wanted to give the people a reason to go out to the other end of the hedge maze. I mean, why go in it if there's nothing on the other side? So I went ahead and I put the food court down on the end there. Give them something. They get to the other end, have a hamburger, have a drink. You're welcome. So, but I did put that on there, and I also went ahead and moved that workers shed is what I call it, just so I could have the path be a little more realistic at the front of the park. Now, one of the things you will note here when I get to moving this workers shed is that I have to have what I wanted is I wanted the workers to be able to get to this part of the park without having to go through the hedge maze. That just wouldn't be a good idea. And so I put this down here, but that means it has to pretty much go right up against the building there. And the problem there is, of course, that there are some paths inside that building, and if you look carefully, you'll notice that people can walk right through the walls. There goes one now. You can see the little lines going in there. So I decided to use the trick to put a fence below the ground and drag it over and block off. And you notice the fence is underground. You can't see it, but because there's a fence there, it blocks between the two paths. I think it's great. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment down below if you like the videos. Please give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate it. I appreciate all the subscriptions. And until next time, I hope each and every one of you has a good one.